The IRS has a brand new leader, and he is making some interesting promises that could make tax filing easier and better overall for taxpayers. The name of this new leader is Danny Werfel, and he was officially sworn in on Tuesday, April 4th. Werfel was nominated to lead the IRS by President Biden, and the Senate approved this appointment in a 54-42 vote in which 6 Republicans broke party ranks to back Biden's nominee. Werfel previously served as the head of the Boston Consulting's Group Global Public Practice and as an acting IRS commissioner. Werfel will be replacing the departing Chuck Reddick, who was nominated by former President Donald Trump to lead the IRS. Now that Werfel has been sworn in, he will be tasked on planning how to spend the roughly $80 billion of additional funding that the IRS is set to receive over the next 10 years. This funding was approved by Congress back in August as a part of the Inflation Reduction Act. The $80 billion in additional funding has been the center of much controversy, as there has been warnings, many from Republicans, that the additional funding will be used to hire an army of new IRS agents who will dramatically scale up the amount of IRS audits conducted every single year. In fact, some figures have projected that as many as 87,000 new enforcement agents will be hired as a part of this new funding. However, other projections are significantly lower. During Werfel's swearing-in ceremony, which took place at the IRS headquarters in Washington, D.C., he addressed some of the controversy. For example, he said that he would not expand audits on businesses or households bringing in less than $400,000 per year. He did say, however, that he would use the $80 billion infusion of cash to make the IRS faster, more tech-savvy, and provide real-world improvements to taxpayers. From these statements, it looks like Werfel actually wanted to use the new funding to make the IRS more modern and efficient in order to make things easier for taxpayers. Werfel stated that some of the funding will be used to add more staff, to end long call wait times, and to open up more IRS locations so that the IRS staff can provide in-person service and expanded online accounts. The purpose of the expanded online accounts is so that more taxpayers will be able to address tax issues electronically instead of through paper mail. Improving electronic communication options could help to reduce the amount of time that it takes to get issues resolved. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen presided over Werfel's swearing-in ceremony. She also made a speech to the attending IRS and Treasury employees. In this speech, Secretary Yellen said, Werfel will now be responsible for making sure that the wealthy and large corporations pay the taxes that they owe. She also said that the IRS will use the new funding to invest in data and analytics in order to help the agency audit large corporations, high-income earners, and complex partnerships that have not paid their full tax bills. She also said that the IRS is going to hire more highly skilled accountants and attorneys. So it would seem from Janet Yellen's remarks that the IRS will in fact be focusing on using its new financial resources in order to put systems into place and to hire people who can help them to enforce tax laws on people and companies, especially higher income earners and self-employed individuals. Yellen's remarks seem to have a different tone from Werfel's remarks, which were more about using the new resources to improve the tax experience for the taxpayers. Ultimately, Werfel and not Janet Yellen will be at the head of the IRS for at least the next 5 years. This is because his terms last for that duration. However, it is unclear exactly how Werfel is going to start using the $80 billion in new funding. Roughly $46 billion of the $80 billion is already earmarked for enforcement. This means hiring new agents and other professionals who will help to enforce tax rules and conduct audits. The other $34 billion is supposed to go towards taxpayer services, operation supports, and updated business systems. Although it is unclear at this time exactly how Werfel is going to spend all of the money that the IRS will receive from the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRS has already started spending some of the money. In fact, the IRS has spent some of the Inflation Reduction Act funding on improving its paper form scanning capabilities. So far in 2023, the IRS has scanned 120,000 paper forms related to the unemployment taxes. This means that the IRS has already scanned more than 20 times the amount of paper forms in this category compared to the amount that it scanned this time last year. The current IRS Commissioner, Doug O'Donnell, said that reaching this milestone in the IRS's paper form scanning capability is a very significant forward in transforming the agency to be more modern and more efficient. The IRS's improvement of its scanning capabilities will enable it to process significantly more paper forms without relying as much on human workers to process the information. Many people view this as a good step forward to the IRS as far as efficiency is concerned. However, will Republicans support Werfel? As I mentioned earlier, Danny Werfel received 6 votes from Republicans, so it seems that some Republicans are already throwing their support behind the new IRS leader. However, it's no secret that many of the Republicans are strongly opposed to the IRS receiving the additional $80 billion in funding, and they are afraid that the IRS will use it to dramatically ramp up audits on the American people. So because of this view, it is likely many Republicans will be weary of supporting anyone who is at the head of the IRS and plans to use the funding to make large quantities of new hires. In fact, in the first week after it took back the House, Republicans introduced a bill to abolish the IRS altogether and replace it with a national sales tax, aka a consumption tax. The bill has not become law at the moment, and despite its strong support in the House, it does not have enough support in the Senate or from the president. So it is unlikely to become law at any time soon. Now, House Republicans also introduced a separate bill to rescind the $80 billion in additional funding for the IRS that the Inflation Reduction Act gave it. Again, this bill is unlikely to become law at any time soon because the Democrats still have control of the Senate. However, if the Republicans do well in the next election cycle, then both of these bills could be back on the table and could potentially become law. It appears that Republicans have a very different view of the value of the IRS compared to the Democrats. For example, speaking about the bill to abolish the IRS, Representative Earl Buddy Carter, a Republican from Georgia, said instead of adding 87,000 new IRS agents to weaponize the IRS against small business owners and middle Americans, this bill would eliminate the need for the department entirely by simplifying the tax code with provisions that work for the American people and encourage growth and innovation. At this time, it is unclear whether or not the Republicans will take the Senate, keep the House, and take the presidency in the next election. So it looks like Werfel will get to spend a significant amount of the new money that was granted by the IRS. If he starts using it to add a substantial amount of new IRS agents to conduct more audits on the American people, then there will most likely be a strong outcry of opposition from Republicans. However, if he primarily uses it to modernize the IRS, and if he doesn't increase audits on American households bringing in less than $400,000, as he promised in the swearing-in ceremony, then it's likely that there will be less opposition to him as a leader of the IRS. But what about the Democrats? Considering the fact that Danny Werfel was nominated directly by President Biden and received strong support from Republicans in his election, it is likely that Democrats will continue to back Werfel. Since the Inflation Reduction Act was passed, the IRS has added 5,000 additional customer support agents. It's likely that many Democrats in the House and Senate who voted for the $80 billion in IRS funding will view this as a very positive development and a step forward for the IRS. Not only can it help the IRS to operate more efficiently, but this also allows taxpayers to get answers to the questions faster and have a better overall experience with the IRS in whole. But as I mentioned earlier, more than half of the $80 billion budget for the IRS is supposed to go towards bolstering enforcement capabilities. So there's a good chance that audits could increase in the near future. If Danny Werfel sticks to his word, then the audits would only increase for the wealthiest Americans and for large-based business owners. Well, that's it for today's video, guys. I hope you liked it. You should be expecting some major significant changes at the IRS level coming over the next month to a couple of years. Hopefully these changes will be positive and will provide a better experience with the IRS. But if you have any questions about your taxes, then feel free to schedule a consultation with my team by clicking on the link in the description below. You can also find a link to our tax alchemy course in the description. In this course, I teach you about the absolute best tax strategies that the wealthy use on a regular basis to legally reduce their tax burdens. So if you want to learn how to reduce your taxes, then feel free to click on the link below. I look forward to seeing you inside there. Okay, that's it for now. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Cheers.